Yeah. Well, isn't that a lovely start to a live stream? Sorry about that. Anyway, Bitcoin and price predictions for this Friday, 21st of January, 2024. Well, if you look at the VEPs, you can see very clearly on the daily time frame, for example, that the AVRs, which are the alpha volatility radars, if you look at different lengths, the short, the medium, the long, that I typically show on my charts, are basically looking pretty much down. Yes, the low length is looking a little pumpy, but the medium and long lengths are definitely not. Moreover, the variance is also not looking particularly swell, although there is some indication that we might see some quick gains to the upside on short-term, low time frame scalps, pardon me, and that we might also see some more continuation to the downside throughout the day. Now, of course, it is Friday. A lot of people in traditional markets love Fridays. That is a great day to take some profits. What does that mean? That means they're closing positions to go away for the weekend, generally with cash in hand. So if they've been shorting a lot throughout the week and are running more short positions today, they might indeed close some of those positions today. So any movement to the downside might be somewhat limited. However, it still certainly looks like there is, in fact, plenty of room to run to the downside, targeting various levels with loss distributions and normal distributions if it were to drop. Now, interesting news is, of course, on the daily, we also see on the 3012 RMLR that the third band down is down at around 60.2K now, which means if the asset does not drop all the way down to 60.2K today, or around there, wherever it actually ends up being if and when it hits it. If it doesn't actually drop all the way down there, which would be like a $4,000 drop, which is, like I think 8% or something like that, then or 7, whatever, it's just 64-ish K now, dropping $4,000, somewhere around 7.5 to 8% or something like that. If the asset doesn't drop down to that third band down again today on the 3012, then that will be the second day in a row that it has not hit it after having hit that band on Wednesday. Now, why is that interesting? Well, that's interesting because if you know anything about the RMLR, then you know that once you have 2 days of the asset not hitting the band anymore, then the probability is extremely high, as in well over 99%, or like 99.7%. The probability is that the asset will actually mean revert to the 3012 RMLR, right, or whatever RMLR it's mean reverting to. In this case, it would be the 3012. It will mean revert to it before touching that band again. This happens, routinely over and over again. There are extreme outlier cases where it can skip 2 or 3 candles and then hit again. There are even more extreme outliers where it hits later, but usually it just like touches it and bounces right back, or it stabs through it and bounces right back. But those are far, far less than 1% of the time on any time frame you look at. So on the daily, that basically means that if you don't see the asset dropping down to that band again today, right? Because it's possible to skip a candle. That's no problem. It can definitely do that, and then touch again. So yesterday would have been the candle that skipped, and then today it gets touch again. Right? On the easy side, if it does continue to drop down below there, down to 60.2K or whatever, and steps through that band or touches it, then it's entirely probable that we'll see. Well, the new information will tell us what's going to exactly happen, but that kind of a move to the downside would probably be a pretty decent place if the volatility and the entropy tell you so, for actually some longs, at least over the weekend, for some quick scalps throughout the weekend, beginning with some longs after a drop like that. But not a guarantee, right? That's why we look at the VEPs, because the information is constantly being updated and properly according to the relevant maths. On the other side, if it doesn't hit today, right, then what we're likely to see is the mean reversion begin to happen over the weekend, and assume it might go sideways for a little while, might slowly climb up, it might slowly climb down. At some point, it is going to mean revert to that 3012 RMLR, whether it's continuing to the downside with a gentle slope, gentler than the RMLR is coming down, or sideways, just walking into it as the RMLR proceeds to continue to the downside as it has, and eventually meets, the price action will meet the RMLR at some point over the coming weeks and months. And over the coming weeks, really, it will probably do at some point in July if it did that. Or the most frequent thing that we see a lot is it will actually move somewhat to the upside. Now we do see a lot of it going downways and sideways and connecting there, and maybe sometimes finishing slightly up. For example, if it's in this direction, or the opposite, like if it's towards the upside, then it begins the mean reversion. We often see it continue to go up at less of a slope, then go sideways, and then dip a little bit below where it began the mean reversion. That happens frequently in both directions. But most often, what does happen is eventually, in a situation like this, we will see a mean reversion, and probably some good portion of it will be to the upside. That said, I don't necessarily think that we'll see that movement to the upside in the immediate coming days, at least not a significant one relative to the time frame. We might get some nice moves on intersects, etc., but I don't necessarily see a big move happening, the famed or legendary when rocket moon thing, when six figures thing. I don't see that necessarily happening this month or next month, at least until we see whether or not the asset is going to come anywhere near completing the mean reversion on like the 7-day time frame and the weekly time frame. Those are much more likely to see mean reversions complete than go to the moon first. Now, does it have to do that? No, it does not have to do that. Mean reversions to the power mean can take a very long time. When it's something like a 7-day or weekly candle, we've certainly seen it take longer than a relatively short number of months. We've seen it go, I think, 9 months or even a year quite recently, right, when it was falling from the high of 2021. In November 2021, it just began to fall, and it didn't complete it for like more than a year, well after the FTX collapse around then or something, and then before right around the time of the rise. So is it possible that the price will in fact begin the mean reversion over the weekend to the daily 3012 up above and mean revert to it and then go to the moon? setting new all-time highs again, etc. It is possible. But are the probabilities leaning more towards the higher time frames? Well, the higher time frames have more weight, if you will, in their significance because it takes more time to build up those time frames. However, low time frames are where the changes happen. Right? That's where the changes begin. And then they build up what you see on the higher time frames. So, as always, trade according to the VEPs, not according to your feelings, because the VEPs will actually tell you what you should or should not be looking for, or what you should or should not be doing with your trades. Right? It shows you the tendency of the probability of price action, or the probable price action. It shows you that with volatility and correlation, and it shows you that with entropy and correlation, and it shows you the very specific probability levels on normal distribution bands, Laplace distribution bands, right? Normal distribution arcs of the projection bosses, Laplace distribution arcs of the projection bosses, right? The RMLRs, the AVQ, you name it. We put standard deviation bands and Laplace bands around practically everything that we can, because those are the probabilities, and the statistics are borne out by what happens across the data set. So bear that in mind. Don't get tricked by YouTube Jimmy, YouTube Charlie, all the YouTube goofies who are shilling nonsense voodoo TA, and actually learn how to trade a better way to trade by using highly relevant maths that we use at Alpha Trading and that they use at HFT firms that literally control the market. The way to do that is to, if you don't know how already, is to come into the Alpha Trading Discord. The URL is alphatradinghq.com/discord. Again, the address for that Discord is alphatradinghq.com/discord. And then you can get your free access to the Volatility Starter Kit. Just create a ticket in the request support channel, and you can request your free access to those tools and that chart. And that's it. Happy trading. See you there.